Hello and welcome to February 7th, where we're reading Exodus 33 through 35. Now, these chapters deal with the repercussions of faithlessness as Israel moves away from Sinai and away from the presence of God. God does not, in fact, live with them, even though he wanted to. He doesn't because they rejected him. They pushed him away, and so there are consequences for that. God still deals with Moses, still gives them the Ten Commandments, still renews the covenant, replaces the tablets, all those things, but the relationship is, shall we say, strained at the very best. His faithfulness is being put to the test because the people have no faithfulness in him. If you want a more detailed breakdown of what's in each of these chapters, well, Exodus 33 starts with the tent being set up, the tent of meeting where Moses meets with God, but it's set up outside the camp. It's not going to be a part of the internals of the Israelite camp. They rejected him. They did not want to live with him, and so he cannot live with them either. They have to walk away. They have to leave, and they have to be absent from the presence of God. Of course, we see the goodness of God, and we see a promise of the goodness of God, which really develops in chapter 34 as God asks Moses, what can I do for you? You're faithful, you're good. What can I do to bless you? And Moses asks to see the glory of the Lord, to see who the Lord is and how great he is. And God's answer is, if you see me, you're going to burn up. So we're going to come to a compromise. You can hear about me. You can see my back. You can see like a little representation of me, but you cannot take the full might of God. And so instead, Moses bears witness to some of the most important words in the whole Bible. Exodus 34, verses 6 and 7, where God defines himself and describes himself and talks about who he is and displays himself to the world outside. He talks about how gracious he is. He talks about how judgmental he is and how there's a balance between mercy and justice, and God is the one who rides that line perfectly. Of course, you have some obligations you're supposed to fulfill. You have some rules that you're supposed to follow if you want to be faithful to this God. And so God establishes that, and Moses ends up going back down the mountain of Sinai with a glowing face, which terrifies the people. He's seen too much of God to be palatable to them. In the end, in chapter 35, they observe the Sabbath, and then they start to build on the tabernacle like they were supposed to, and who knows, maybe it'll go well this time. That's the question we're left with as we leave off the end of this week, but we'll pick up next week, never fear, in Exodus chapter 36. We'll be going all the way through Leviticus chapter 10. Hopefully it'll give you an introduction into both Exodus and Leviticus. We'll finish up the one book, we'll get into the laws, and maybe you'll find they're not as intimidating as you might think they are from the outset. If you're interested in the written stuff, there's some more content over there. Go ahead and check that out if you want to. If not, I'll see you next week for Exodus 36.